everybody, how you doing? This is Mindalia TV English live streaming, where we exchange some great ideas. And I'm Dan Blanchard, and today we got a really special guest with us named Scott Deisley. Scott Deisley is an amazing educator from the Red Lion School District in Pennsylvania. He's the school superintendent there. And let me tell you, everybody, Scott does some amazing things. He does something I particularly like, which is he involves like the whole connection of mind, body, sports, education, does a really good job with that. And during these tough times, these tough economic times, when school budgets are always tough, Scott's doing amazing things with getting grants and having community involvement. He's a service-oriented guy, saying he brings in speakers, people that add value. Scott does so many things in today's educational world. I can't wait for everybody to meet Scott Deisley. Scott, how you doing there?
I'm doing great, Dan. Thank you. That's an amazing introduction. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I mean, me and you go back a ways, Scott. I can't wait for our Mindalia audience to learn more about you and some of the amazing things that you're doing over there in Pennsylvania. You brought me there as a speaker about a year ago, and I thought it was really, really cool how after my speech, you brought me to a wrestling match, and you brought in two colleges. And I believe Arizona was ranked 12th in the country, and Lock Haven was ranked 22nd. And they went to your gym, which was like a college gymnasium. Absolutely amazing. I've never seen a high school gym like that. But that whole thing with like mind and body, sports, getting the community in there. Hoping you can maybe tell everybody a little bit about yourself that I haven't covered yet. And then maybe something about how does this whole sports and educational connection work?
Fantastic. I'd love to. And I started as a junior high teacher 30 years ago. I taught junior high age kids, 7th and 8th graders, was an English teacher. And back then, I never thought I'd be anything but a classroom teacher. And I don't mean but. That was where I was happy.
Yeah.
And I had great mentors along the way, great principals that I worked for, gave me opportunities. Next thing I know, 11 years teaching, and I'm a building principal. I'm moving on up the ranks in the schools. Been in 5 school districts in this time. Landed here at Red Lion 9 years ago. I'm in my 9th year as superintendent of schools.
Wow.
I've had some variety of districts. I've been in suburban schools. I've been in wealthy schools. I've been in schools that are very rural. And everything in between. The only thing I haven't touched is what you do. I haven't been into the urban setting. But along the way, I've had great mentors that have taught me the value of bringing together community resources and recognizing that there's more to education than just seat time and just textbooks.
True.
And bringing in that whole child approach.
No doubt. Totally agree.
You mentioned the wrestling event last year. One of the best parts of that, it was a huge turnout. We had the highest rating of the week for NCAA wrestling at our place last year at that time. We had the highest paid attendance in the NCAA.
And that's a high stadium.
It was amazing. And there was a local young man who wrestled for Lock Haven, Chance Marsteller, nationally ranked athlete. So it was really a neat homecoming for him, but had several national champions out in front of our students, and saw that as an opportunity to bring an experience to our kids in our community they wouldn't normally get. They wouldn't normally get to see Division I athletes and interact with them.
Yeah. And that's something I think, Scott, you've been doing a lot of, is getting like kids to maybe see things and experience things they wouldn't normally maybe get to see or experience on their own. And going back to that whole like body-mind connection, the sports, the educational connection. I mean, there's been studies for many, many years about how kids learn better when they're physically active and all that. But yet we see schools like all over the country, that are like cutting like, recess time, gym time, physical activities. They're double blocking up on English, or math, maybe dropping social studies down to 1 day a week or whatever it is, but just cutting it down. It saddens me, I'm saying? It saddens what I see. So I think it's really cool that you do this sports really are important. They go hand in hand with education.
Not only the sports part of it, but we're also heavily interested in our drama, our music. Um, we're actually exploring esports, the electronic gaming for students. That's becoming very, very popular. And I know that seems counterintuitive to say, well, geez, they're going to sit on a chair and play video games. But we really see it as an opportunity to develop some of those social emotional skills, being a part of a team. Not everyone's comfortable being on the basketball court, being on the field hockey field.
Yeah.
So this would give children an opportunity to be a part of a team, to make connections with peers and interact in a very positive yet competitive way. Help develop some of those coping skills, some of those self-worth, gain some self-worth through that.
And that's the beautiful thing that I see you doing there, Scott, is that you're making opportunities for all types of kids. You know what I'm saying? It's not, like you said, not everyone's going to be a football player or whatever, right? Or the cheerleader or whatever.
Right.
So making opportunities for all sorts of people. And it kind of comes down to, Dr. Carol Dweck talks a lot about in her book, Mindset,
Yes.
with extracurricular activities. There's so many positives of that. One, it puts them with their friends. There's a social component. Two, they want to be there. No, and they don't always want to be in biology class, but they want to be at their extracurricular activities. And that may actually get them to their biology class. You know what I'm saying? And the third thing is they're choosing to do something hard and they want to excel at those extracurricular activities. So me, I don't care what it is. If it's chess, if it's track, if it's gaming, we do some gaming in my school over here in Connecticut. We got a guy that's running that. And when he does like tournaments on the big screen in the lecture hall, I mean, it's so cool. The kids are loving it. And you can bet, Scott, that these kids, they're going to show up at school and go to the biology class, So.
When we think back and talk back about our time in high school or junior high, elementary school, we don't sit there and talk about the worksheets that we did. We don't talk about the tests that we took. We talk about these experiences. And if we can connect kids with experiences, that is the key to get them there. And then we can get the education in and we get them motivated. We give them something to look forward to in the day. We all work better when we have something of value in front of us.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with you, Scott. It's so right. Now, I mean, you're making all these things happen, these extracurricular activities. You get that amazing gymnasium. Now, I don't know if there's other people in Pennsylvania that have gymnasiums like that, but I never seen one of those in Connecticut. You know what I'm saying? All that stuff costs money, lots and lots of money. And these are some really, really difficult financial times when I'm seeing just school budget cut after school budget cut after school budget cut. And you took a really innovative, bold approach to get grant money. And you even brought on an employee to do something about that.
We have, and Dan, I mentioned I've been here 9 years. In that 9 years, we have not raised property tax. So the way Pennsylvania funds schooling, the school board has the ability to tax residents and property owners. They call that the millage rate. So since I've been here, we've not only not raised the millage rate, we actually reduced it by a small amount. At one point, a few years ago, we paid off some debt. And we gave back that money to our taxpayers. We rolled it off of the rolls. What we did instead, we've done a couple things to offset that. Like, as you mentioned, times are different. People are struggling. Making ends meet is a little tougher than it used to be. And we recognize that. So to go to our taxpayers and say, hey, we need a little bit more money from you or a lot more money from you, it's just not reasonable. We hired a marketing and communications director a few years ago. And with the goal, really a simple goal, we wanted him to cover the cost of his position and to make us a small profit. And he's actually done a tremendous job. I'll give you one example. We had a scoreboard in our stadium, a traditional scoreboard like you see in almost any district. We had a storm come through and actually demolished our scoreboard. We went out and bought a $211,000 video scoreboard. $211,000 scoreboard and did not use $1 of taxpayer money to pay for it. We sold advertising, and then what we've done is we have a class at our high school where our high school students actually sell commercials. So they go to local businesses, local law firm, veterinary hospital, insurance company, and they create videos and run those videos during our sporting events in our stadium. So through that process, we paid off the $211,000 scoreboard, no taxpayer dollars involved, and we gave our students some real learning opportunities. They are doing real work for the real world, and they can see the benefit of that.
That's amazing. I imagine you probably got other school districts calling you saying, "How the heck did you do that?" I'm trying to pick your mind.
Much like your experience when you saw our gymnasium, you notice we have banners, we have signs from all of our corporate sponsors around our gymnasium. So when people visit for competitions, that's the first question we get is, how were you able to do that? How did you get all these people to agree to be a part of what you're doing? And we've just been blessed that we have so many interested businesses and community members who are interested in the well-being of our children, that they want to put some resources behind us, and we hang their banners up in our gymnasium as a way of saying thank you and getting them a little bit of advertisement, a little bit of recognition for that.
Well, you do have an amazing community there, Scott. I know that firsthand because I was there. I saw it.
You were.
Felt, experienced it. So, and we're going to talk a little bit about community in a moment. But first, I want to go back to that guy you hired to do, to go out and try to find funds. Now, I imagine like your school board probably questioned that and said, "Wait a minute, we don't have money to hire another employee." I mean, is that kind of what happened?
You are absolutely correct. When I asked them, and I think this was 7 or 8 years ago, I went to them and I proposed it this way. I said, "Give me a chance to try this. Let me do this for 3 years. If we don't break even, then we'll remove the position." And I was fortunate they had confidence and gave me a little bit of grace, and I was able to try it. The good news was, in the first year, we were able to cover costs, and we were good to go from the first year on. So we bring in a substantial amount of both income and in-kind services. So I'll give you an example of that. Under Armour is we are exclusive with Under Armour. So we get the best price on Under Armour gear. And our athletes, whenever they're on the playing field or the playing court, they're wearing Under Armour gear. And because of that, then we're able to do fundraisers with Under Armour products, which sell very well, and help to return our investment or increase our investment. And it's good. It's a great product that our kids might not have been able to afford before. And it is pretty cool to see in our gymnasium, "Protect this house" up above our scoreboard. That's pretty intimidating when you see that.
It sure is. Nice. And you're getting the kids some real world experience with the old Under Armour and the raising funds and being part of everything. And I know you do like a series of like real learning for real life, and which is really cool. And you bring in all these speakers. You brought me in last year, but you bring speakers in like during the fall and during the spring. Again, all that stuff costs money, but you guys are doing real world stuff to make it happen. I mean, how did you like decide to go down that path of just bringing people in all the time from like the outside real world, real community, such as speakers or presenters or coaches or whatever they are? How did you decide to go down that path? Because I'm sure a lot of people would have been, "Well, yeah, that sounds nice, but oh my gosh, where do you even start doing that? Sounds like so much work,"
It is work. The return on that time investment is tremendous. And I think we all would agree that as a society, we're becoming more fragmented. We're becoming less social with each other. I think kids are feeling the pressures of social media put on them, and encouraging and providing opportunities for kids to get in front of real live people people who have stories, who have experiences. And when you and I first met here in person, that was the goal, was to have you share your story with our student athletes and our coaches. And it gives us a touch point. It gives us a common experience that we can talk about. And a year later, we're still talking about, remember when Dan Blanchard said this, remember that. It's been wonderful. It's a nice connection for us. What we've done, some folks would say, well, it costs a lot of money to do this. I've found that people are very, very generous, and people are very willing to work with you and meet your budgets. And you're right. We held an event this year, and I'm sure we can see my card here, but it says Real Learning for Real Life. And we sent this postcard out. I'm not going to read the back to you, but our event in September was called Transforming Stigma into Strength. And we focused on the stigma of mental health issues. And we put it right out in front. We're finding that not just children, but adults across all spectrums, all demographics, are struggling with stress, with emotional needs, anxiety, financial pressures, which add to it. And we brought in a speaker to address our high school students. We focused on that population. And a gentleman named Mike Vini. Mike came in and talked about his story, his experiences. And then here was the best part of the day, or the best part of the afternoon. Mike was great in the morning. Up to that point, I talked to 35 different people in our community. I called 35 people who had different stories, different experiences, and I asked them if they'd be willing to be a part of that day and to share their stories with our kids. I made 35 phone calls. I got 35 yeses. It was heartwarming.
That's mind blowing.
It is mind blowing. And I had the junior and senior class. So I had roughly 750 kids, 800 kids who had the opportunity to self-select 2 sessions. So I had financial advisors come in to talk. I had people who got themselves thrown out of college. They flunked out of college, but are now back on the right track and doing well. I had grief counselors. I had people who work in the mental health industry, people who work with people in addiction recovery. Mm-hmm. I had the mother of a child who died by suicide share her story. So I had everything from really heavy topics to some informational topics for the kids to self-select. Yeah. They had that opportunity that afternoon. They had 2 45-minute sessions to talk to people, and the feedback was just so positive that I've committed to doing this twice a year for the high school. I'll do it both fall and spring. Yep. And I'm positive that getting 35 people in the spring will probably be easier than getting the first 35, which wasn't that difficult.
Well, you're putting it out there. You're raising the bar, Scott. Amazing. And I love how you're showing that learning just doesn't take place in between the 4 walls of a classroom. You know what I'm saying? Learning takes place everywhere.
I totally agree with you. And I think you're remembering we've started an internship program at our high school. Last year was our first full year with it, and we had 75 of our high school students who got real-world internship experience out in our community, out with businesses, out with different industries. And I joked with my high school principal because it was something they pulled together pretty quickly just to see how it would work. It was an overwhelming success. And I joked with him. I said, I can hardly wait to see what happens when you actually really try. Because you talk mind-blowing. Yep. It was mind-blowing. We had students who figured out what they wanted to do after high school. We had students who figured out what they didn't want to do after high school, which is super important as well.
Yeah, no doubt. And that's so impressive. And I know I used to run from one of the schools I worked at. I used to run like a little work program where we took kids out in the community. It's so important for the kids to get out there. I don't think enough schools are doing it. So what you're doing is really cool. But I got to tell you, something you said to me earlier when we talked really stuck out. You said that it's really tough to go from childhood to adulthood. That's why you're always trying to bring in, people that care and people that will work with the students and help them bridge that gap from like childhood to adulthood. And it reminded me of a story or something that happened within the last couple of weeks. For me, one of my students asked me about the military
Yeah.
and asked me about my experience in the military and said, which one was easier, being in the military or now? And I thought about it for a second. I said, you know what? In many ways, I think the military was easier, even though I was infantryman, front line, foot soldier, all that. And he's like, how's that possible? And I said, in the military, you got a boss that tells you what to do, like almost 24/7. They tell you what to do and you just do it. And everything's good. You know what I'm saying? But in the real world, you don't have people standing over you telling you what to do. And you got to make all these decisions every day about what to do. And then you go through life sometimes wondering if you made the right decision. And I go, and that's like a little painful sometimes. So in some ways that's harder. So yeah, it's real tough to go from childhood to adulthood.
And we talk about all the time, you'll hear people say, we're training children for jobs that we don't even know what they are. They don't even exist yet. We're training kids for an environment that changes very, very rapidly. And then compound that with the social media presence, compound that with the 24/7 news cycles, compound that with just the pressures, the image pressures, the social pressures that are on children. And, as much as I would love to have that 18-year-old knees and, body again, I don't think I would trade places with kids. It's tough. And I think what you and I remember from high school, from junior high, college, it's different. It's different today. So helping kids navigate those avenues is difficult. And what I'm finding is that the interaction is lacking. It's not that kids' parents don't love them or kids' parents don't spend time with them, but it takes a village to raise a child.
Absolutely.
And we used to know our neighbors. We used to leave the front door open. We used to, let the kids go play in the yard all unsupervised.
Grandparents lived with you, right?
Yeah, and exactly. And now it's a different time. So giving kids those role models, I find that kids enjoy just having the ability to interact with adults and ask those questions. I'm sure your story fascinates kids when they say, well, wait a minute, you were in the military. Now, why are you a teacher? That's a great story to understand how that happened. They say to me, well, I'm sure you always wanted to be a superintendent. And I say, no. 30 years ago, I didn't even know what that was. Maybe even 20 years ago, I didn't know what that was.
Yep. Scott, I didn't even want to always be a school teacher. I just wanted to be a wrestling coach and football coach.
There you go. and look where we are now today. And kids love to hear those stories because they're figuring it out for themselves. And they're making decisions like college decisions. Who didn't go to college and change a major? Everyone that I've ever met has shifted to some degree. Lucky is the kid who goes to college and says, I want to do this, and that's how it goes. Or the child who says in 8th grade, I'm going to be a banker, and boom, that's what he does for the next 40 years.
Yeah, like you said, lucky are those because they're far and few in between.
And what's the statistic? We have something like 8 or 11 careers in our lifetime, some staggering number. It wasn't always that way. We prepared people for that job, that one job they would have.
It used to be simpler times, no doubt. So sometimes I joke with my students, that I'm still wondering what I'm going to be when I grow up. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Always looking for that next stage.
Yes, absolutely. So I know we got to start getting ready to wrap up soon. So is there something I haven't asked you yet that I should have, or maybe some other plans you got for your educational world over there that you're working on? What do you think?
I'll tell you, the other focus that we really have invested time in the last 18 months is a movement called trauma-informed care. I don't like the title of that, trauma informed, but what it talks about is recognizing those stresses that kids experience that have a long-term impact on them. You may have heard of the ACEs study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences. Yep. And there's a ton of research out there that supports the fact that children who experience adverse experiences in childhood, it follows them through life. And it can cause both cognitive deficiencies as well as physical deficiencies and problems. So we've become very in tune to that, not making excuses for students' behavior or students' lack of performance on curriculum, but rather acknowledging that and helping them to work through those experiences. That's been our big transition, our big thought process shift, to help our teachers to be better equipped to deal with children who come from families that might have addiction or abuse or incarcerated parents, a death of a family member. Those all have a tremendous impact, and recognizing how that impacts the child's development.
Yeah, and I think we're going to be, facing more and more of that. It's not like that's going to go away. So I think the educational world has to be ready for that, ready to accept that, and ready to meet it head on and do the best we can do for our modern day kids. Times are tougher for kids today. It's just how it is. All right, so Scott, we got to get ready to wrap up here. Where can people find you? Contact you if they have questions about some of the amazing things you're doing.
Absolutely. Red Lion Area School District, rlasd.net. You'll find me real easily across the top there, but that's the best place to connect with us, and that'll connect you to our other social media platforms.
Outstanding. And thank you for being with us tonight, Scott. It was great talking to you again.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And good night to all of our Mindalia TV fans.